Okay. All right, you guys. Welcome to our Body Electric weekly webinar. I'm super excited to have my good friend and life coach Amy Snow on the call tonight. She's going to be talking to us shortly about the concept of belief. I really honestly just wanted her to talk. I don't even really care about what her topic is. I know that a lot of you guys, especially those of you who are on here live, have met Amy before. You guys are part of our mastermind groups, so she doesn't really need much introduction for those of you on here live. But I also know that we have a pretty good crew of people who listen to this recording later because you're working full time or you're working in the evenings. So if you don't know Amy, let me take a minute to introduce her to you. She's also a Beachbody coach. So that's pretty cool because she understands our business. She understands what it is that we do, even though her dominant business is in the life coaching realm. She's a certified John Maxwell coach. And like I said before, she's a sweet, sweet friend of mine. And you guys might not all know this, but even the people who are on the mastermind, but she has a pretty strong gift that I don't feel like you talk about often, which is the gift of music. She plays the guitar, she has an amazing voice, and she leads worship at a local church here, Grace Church. And so she's just multi-talented in so many ways. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know her a little bit better. I'm officially declaring her as our resident life coach of the team, of the Body Electric team, as if I didn't do that already. But anyways, she leads mastermind groups for our team. Right now we're doing one called Put Your Dream to the Test. So if that sounds foreign to you and you're interested in doing something like that in the future, it's open to everybody on our team. So you can reach out to me and I can connect you with the next one that we're going to do. But for now, I just want her to take the reins, to talk to us a little bit about belief. Hopefully you had a chance to watch that short little video she posted today in the team page. If not, make sure to check that out. But Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you want, we can just take questions at the end,
okay.
If that works for you.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. All right, take it over, my friend.
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. And I've said this before, but I never tire of saying how much I love this team. I love how Jenny and I got connected in kind of a random. We didn't know each other until like my first Beachbody summit in Las Vegas, and I don't know, we happened to be by the pool at the same time, and someone introduced us. So it's like, so we had to go to Las Vegas to meet each other, but we only live 10, 15 minutes away. So anyways. So this has been a great partnership. I love getting to work with Jenny one-on-one, but also especially to love getting to work with her team, with you guys. And yeah, I feel like I'm an honorary member of Body Electric. So it's nice to be part of your family. Absolutely. And one of my passions, is to come alongside. You'll hear me say that a lot when it comes to my passion for people is coming alongside, helping you to excel in your sphere of influence. And so I love seeing the light bulbs go on as you guys are learning. And I love that you guys are investing in yourself to learn. And so, so tonight we're, as you know, we're talking about the topic of belief. But before we dive in, and again, I have a few notes here to just talk through. But for those of you who were able to watch the video, that 3-minute video, like those two questions, like what themes did you see here and what captured your attention? So I'd love to hear your responses to that if you were able to watch the video. So so I'm actually asking for participation. So I don't know whether this is normal webinar.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
Okay.
I'm going to let other people answer you.
So, who was able to watch the video? Laura.
I watched the video.
Okay. So, yeah.
I think one thing, when people describe themselves, you could tell their tone was just totally different when other people described them. It was more kind of rushed. They didn't want to pinpoint specifics. And more kind of questioning, it seemed like, rather than the people who when they described others, they were more gentle, I think, and more specific.
Okay. Yeah, Jennifer, how about you? What did you anything else that you saw or captured in that?
No, I agree with everything Jackie said. Just not very kind, I guess, to themselves, or not overly kind. You know, they weren't mean, but
Right. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Anything else, Laura or Jenny, since you guys watched? Yeah, Laura.
I actually thought they were very critical of themselves. They were trying almost to mask it, but they were very critical of themselves. You know, what I remember specifically one woman saying, "My mother said that my chin was like a very prominent chin." Like that obviously stuck with her, and
Right.
that is how she sees herself because of something that her mother said.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty powerful. But then when everybody else was describing these people, it was very, it was lighter, and I guess kind was a very good word. They saw the wonderful characteristics. You know, one guy I think said something about a girl's eyes. You know, he could see her through her eyes, and you know, things like that. They were talking about very in depth about almost who they were as a person through their features, where the person themselves couldn't see that.
Yeah, that's good. Jenny, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, everything everybody said is pretty spot on. The only thing I would say is I definitely sensed a lack of confidence in their wording and in their language and in their nonverbal communication too. So not just what they were saying, but also how they were acting just came across very not confident. But it was interesting that the people talking about other people seemed to find the positive qualities in the other people pretty easily. So same thing as what everybody else said.
Yeah. So how do you think their belief was reflected in what they said? Right? I think like Laura said, right? That the one woman, something her mom said when she was a young kid stuck with her. What do you think she believed about herself? Right? I was captured too by the end. Like there was this realization of, wow. And just, I think seeing their expressions, right, when they saw how someone else described them versus, and then how that started to shift, like, wow. You know, I mean, obviously the title of the thing is "You're More Beautiful Than You Think." But there was a comment that I think it was the woman with the long blonde hair said, you know, how we view ourselves, right, it impacts the friends we make, right, the jobs we take. I mean, it impacts so much of what we do, what we choose to do or not do, right? I think it was that statement I thought was really powerful, right? Because where does that stem? I don't know, like they showed that clip at our church this past weekend. They just started a series on health, you know, and they focused in on the physical side this past weekend. So I thought it was just, I don't know, I guess that this video came to mind when we started talking about belief, because, you know, you'll hear me say oftentimes, you know, I'll stop you when you say something, right? Because often our words are conveying what we believe about ourselves or our abilities. And so our language is very telling. And so that's why it's becoming aware of something deeper sometimes than we may not be aware of. And this is important, right? Because this is something else you'll hear me say many times as well, is that belief drives our thoughts, right? Which drives our actions or behavior, which drives our results. So oftentimes if we're not getting the results we want, we tend to just focus in on the behavior, right? Or the actions. And granted, there's definitely, right, there's certain things we have to adjust in order to get different results. But when we're consistently kind of butting up our heads up against something, and we just feel like, man, I am just not getting past this, what's going on? We need to take some steps back, right? So what are my thoughts? And really a lot of times we need to step back and go to the core of what are we believing to be true? Because we can be saying one thing, but if we're believing something different at the core, that's where, if you've heard that term, right, where we can tend to self-sabotage. This is, surprise, surprise, a John Maxwell quote. But he said this: you will become on the outside what you are on the inside, right? You will become on the outside what you are on the inside. So it's like that whole idea, right? It's an inside out job. We have to pay attention to what's on the inside, because that's truly what's going to, well, for lack of a better word, leak out, right? This is actually, this quote is from Zig Ziglar, and he says, "It's impossible to consistently behave in a manner inconsistent with how we see ourselves. We can do very few things in a positive way if we feel negative about ourselves." Okay, so so one of the things I just wanted to touch on is some of the negative beliefs that we are believing, right, that are obstacles to our path to growth. But then obviously then too, what are some steps to overcome those obstacles? All right, and these won't be like, this isn't rocket science, and these are things that you're going to be well aware of. But sometimes I think, again, it takes hearing things repetitively, right, over and over again. And we have to kind of reassess all the time, because life happens and we can get back into some patterns maybe that we don't realize. So the first negative belief that can be an obstacle to your path to growth is the scarcity mindset, right? That scarcity thought. Like, so how do you, and maybe these are just, again, questions that you can jot down. I'm all about reflecting on some of these questions, because it's easy to just kind of be like, oh yeah, and we don't really pay attention. So reflection is a key here. How do you view options? How do you view resources or opportunities, right? Because when you have the scarcity mindset, you believe they're limited, all right? And that we're all competing for a very finite number of, resources, opportunities, etc. So it's like you're competing for a piece of the pie, right? That's not very big. The sense that kind of the world doesn't have enough for us. Now let me, there are some that are motivated by that and that will work their tail off in order to get their piece of the pie. But for many, it's the opposite, right? It can be demotivating because they feel the odds are against them. So the scarcity mindset is one of the most limiting factors to our growth. Okay. The second is insecurity. So whereas the scarcity mindset says the world doesn't have enough, the insecurity piece says that I'm not enough, right? That becomes more personal, right? This kind of, we minimize ourselves, right? That my abilities, my talents, my strengths are somehow deficient in some way. Okay. You need, realize, like if you don't believe that you're good enough, why pursue a goal, right? If you don't think you're capable of reaching it, why go for it, right? So this is where, again, we can self-sabotage. And this is connected to, for those of you who've done the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, or you've read it, there's something called the law of the mirror, right? And this says you must see value in yourself to add value to yourself. So in that insecure mindset, right, if we tend to think, I'm not bringing a whole lot of value, and so that can then be a domino effect, and I'm not going to add value to myself, and then you remain stuck, right? That we can remain in this kind of cycle. Okay, and the truth is, right, we can't outperform our self-image. Similar to, for those of you familiar with the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, okay, there's something called the law of the lid, which says, our effectiveness is as good as our leadership, basically. And so in a similar, like if your leadership lid, we've talked about this, is a 5, like you'll never rise above a 4. Or if you're a 6, you'll never rise above a 5. Well, this is similar to our self-image, right? So if it was on a scale of 0 to 10. If your self-image is a 3, you're not going to rise above a 2. Okay, we just can't outperform our self-image. And so this is why it's so important to understand sometimes, like, where what real, right, is playing in our head, because you're the most important person you listen to all day. We listen to ourselves probably more than anybody else, and not realizing that. Okay, then the third negative belief is powerlessness. Okay, and this is kind of the idea that we have no ability to affect our world. Okay, and this can often begin, with a wound, like maybe someone in authority at some point kind of dismissed you or ignored your voice. And so what can happen with that, right? Over time, then we start not accepting personal responsibility for our actions, or lack thereof. Okay, and this is where victim mentality can come in, right? It's someone else should have acted, someone else is to blame other than me, right? It's all happening to me, that I'm at the mercy of whoever's in charge. I am basically a victim of my environment, right? And you're less likely to pursue growth in that mindset. Okay. Now, again, remember, these are negative beliefs that are preventing, growth. This is personal growth, but obviously this is going to affect your growth in your business, right? They're very interconnected. They aren't separate silos. Okay, so removing, and this is that, right? You're not stuck there if you choose not to be. Okay, you can overcome these obstacles. And awareness, you hear me? Yeah, awareness is a key, right? The key to growth. And until we're aware of these areas, then the change won't happen. So awareness is the first step of growth. So once you become aware, now what? But trust, okay, you can believe differently than you are right now. But this is what you have to remember, that it's your choice. What are you choosing to believe? Now here is where, again, changing your belief, if you're struggling with any of these areas, it doesn't change overnight, okay? If you've been in this pattern for a while, it's just going to take some time to, in a sense, you're building new neural pathways, or you're writing over this old reel in your head that has been more negative in nature. So, but it's going to take intentionality and choosing differently. Okay, so let's say if you struggle with scarcity, this is here where you're choosing to focus on the abundance mindset. Okay, you're focusing on possibilities versus the lack. And this is where I want to refer to, and I'm going to, I'll post this in your team page, Jenny, after this webinar is over, because there's a Michael Hyatt podcast on the abundance mindset that is fantastic. But what I'm going to just do right now, and then actually a client of mine, I shared this with her. In fact, it was interesting because I was like, I could not find this podcast, and I had given this podcast to a client of mine almost close to a year ago, and I texted her today, and I was like, do you still have this podcast? Because I was like, I couldn't find it in his feed. And she responded within 5 to 10 minutes, and she's like, oh yeah. She goes, and she had this. She texted me this graphic that she had made her screensaver. She still had that podcast readily available because it had been such a significant piece for her. And I asked her if I could share the graphic, because again, it's just kind of summarizing the points he makes in this podcast. So I'm actually gonna just give a quick overview of those. Again, we're combating the scarcity mindset with the abundance mindset. But I highly recommend listening to the podcast. But these are the points he says. Number one, there's always more where that came from. There's always more where that came from. In our business, the Beachbody business, right? Maybe you've been cultivating a potential coach, and then they decide to go with someone else, right? How frustrating can that be? And this is where we can think scarcity, you know, and it's frustrating. I get it, but it's like, you know what? Instead of responding, again, choosing to go, you know what? There's more. There's always more where that came from. There's a lot more people out there that I can connect with. Number 2, that you're happy to share knowledge, contacts, and compassion with others. Yeah, that you're not hoarding, right, to get ahead, but that you're happy to share. Again, this is abundance, right? We're sharing our abundance with others. Number 3 is default to trust, and that will help you to build rapport easily. And that's easier for some than others, right? Because there are some that are just more skeptical in nature. And this, again, is a choice, probably would be a more significant choice that someone needs to make. Like, you know what, I'm going to choose to trust here, and not end in this, well, that's just how I am. Like, you know, because that's an excuse to that, again, keeps us stagnant and in a place where we don't want to remain. Number 4, welcome competition, right? It makes the pie bigger and makes us better, right? So and when we talk about competition, right, it's healthy competition. Because we know the ones that when we get out of control, we don't want that. But having competition, right, raises our bar when we have healthy competitions, whether it's within the team or other people that you admire that are in similar fields. That you ask yourself, how can I give more than is expected? Again, this is the abundance mindset. How can I give more than is expected? I love that. Honestly, that's actually when John Maxwell gives a talk. He calls it the John Maxwell team DNA. So if you ever hear JMT DNA, he gives his talk about what John Maxwell coaches are all about. And this is one of the ones he talks about, that exceeding expectations is the way to live, the way to lead, and to serve those that you're serving. So I love that mindset. Number 6 is that you're optimistic about the future, believing the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. Again, abundance mindset. Combating the scarcity mindset. Number 7 is think big and embrace risk. And then number 8 is dwell in gratitude. That piece had to be coming, right? Be thankful and confident. So you're dwelling in gratitude. Okay, so this is a way, again, just that you're combating the struggle. If you struggle with scarcity mindset, this helps you to be living more in that abundance mindset. So again, I highly recommend listening to that podcast, which I will post after our webinar. All right, now if you struggle with insecurity, there's different aspects to that, right? I think we can talk about having a list of how many have a list of affirmations. Okay, hang on a second. So I have I'm watching a couple doggies and they're wanting to get out. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that. So affirmations, absolutely. Like when we talk about guarding your self-talk, right? Having a list of affirmations can start helping to rewrite, again, what we're telling ourselves. So that's definitely a piece of this, is getting some positive affirmations that you can start. When you get triggered to do this negative self-talk, let it start triggering that positive self-affirmations. Another area of insecurity, what I tend to find, right, is insecurity then can start to breed comparison. Because I know at times when I'm feeling insecure, I start looking to other people and then I start comparing myself. And what does that do, right? That just is a spiral downward. So be very careful of comparison, because comparison is a thief of joy. Okay. let's be celebrating our differences, right? And celebrating accomplishments of those around us. Here are some questions. Now this is actually, so those of you who are in the Put Your Dream to the Test Mastermind, you'll recognize, because this, I took these, this is, was a suggestion from, this is actually from Les Brown. If you're struggling, right, with kind of insecurity here, here's some questions that you can answer. Like, what are my gifts? What are 5 things I like about myself? What people make me feel special? And what moment of personal triumph do I remember? Sometimes, right, we need to remember some of these things to help bring back, to build up our self-image and security, okay? And these are all, you know, depending on where your insecurity lies, because this next one is where the self-limiting beliefs can come in, all right? Be like, I am not enough, or I can't, or I am not, whatever. You fill in the blank. And this is where I say create a turnaround statement to help you when you come up against these self-limiting beliefs. Like maybe it's, you know what, I'm not a business person. Or I've never, or I've never sold anything, or I'm not a whatever. Or if you have the, I have never done this, or I've always done things this way. Okay, these are things that can kind of limit us. So these self-limiting beliefs, and this is how you can create a turnaround statement. And I say this is like you do an I am statement, an I can statement, and then an I will. All right, so an I am, right, we're talking in the affirmative, like as if we're talking in the present, like that business person example. If I said, you know, I'm not business minded, well, I am, okay, being in the affirmative, I am a business person. I am the CEO of my company. Or I don't know, maybe you're the president, whatever it is that you're wanting to, whatever title you want to give yourself, speak it confidently. And then the I can statement is, okay, what are the things that are required of you as a CEO of your company, right, or of your business? What are some of those activities? What are the things that I can do, right? But the key here also, again, is in the action. And that's why there's an I will statement, is that starting to put into action the things that you can do as a CEO of your company, okay? And start small, start with one thing, okay? So the I am, I can, I will. So this again, helps in the insecurity, turning that insecurity into, and some of those self-limiting beliefs that come from that, into beliefs that are going to move you forward. Okay, a book that I recommend that if this is an area that you struggle in, it's called So Long Insecurity, You've Been a Bad Friend to Us, and that's by Beth Moore. I've read that I don't know, 2 or 3 times. It's a good one. So if that's the area. Okay, and then third, if you struggle with powerlessness, and this is, again, where embracing responsibility is going to be key, okay? Because remember, this is where the victim mentality can take place, of it's always somebody else's fault, or it's always something happening to me. So this is where we're embracing responsibility. And so my question to you in that regard is, like, what do you need to own? But also, though, what do you need to let go of? Sometimes we can own things that aren't ours, that isn't ours to own. Okay. For the things that you can control, take responsibility for those things. Because again, similar, like until we're aware and take responsibility, change will never happen. So taking responsibility for lack of action, maybe in certain areas of your business, until you own that you're not doing maybe the things that you need to do, you're going to continue to remain stuck. Okay, so just remember, belief drives your thoughts, drives your action or behavior, and which then speaks into your results. There was one other thing I wanted to, no, I've lost it. So anyway, so again, just you will become on the outside what you are on the inside. So belief is huge, right? When we talk about belief, it's just not, rah, 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 believe, and I mean, absolutely, it's believing you can do it is key. But if there's any issues of why am I not moving forward, this is when, taking time to reflect and maybe taking a look at these 3 areas of your life and just saying, are there areas that I have this scarcity mindset? Are there places I'm feeling insecure or feeling powerless, right? And there are ways to, because once you identify it, then there's steps that you can take to start choosing a different course of action. So that's what I have, Jenny. So I know that's a lot kind of coming at you quickly, but yeah, open it up for questions or
That's
thoughts.
good. I think it comes at great timing because I know a lot of people that are on here live are on the Put Your Dream to the Test mastermind, but regardless of whether you are or not, I feel like there's sort of been this overall theme throughout the network, honestly. Like throughout the network, I'm seeing it. Like my success partner, Erin, and I have talked about it. My upline and I have talked about it. And the only thing we can kind of drill it down to is belief. And so that's why I wanted Amy to talk about this specifically, because as you guys know, I think personal development is it's like the heart of the vital behaviors, and like the inviting and the proof the products work and everything else is sort of like the other organs. But I feel like the personal development is really the heart. But anyways, what I'm getting at is we keep coming back to this question of like, why, right? Like, why are coaches why are some coaches dropping, or why are some coaches quitting, or why are some coaches giving up too soon, or why are some people not pushing harder? And so it's this constant question that we have in the back of our minds, because we honestly see great potential in a lot of people, right? Like we tend to see the potential in people before they see it in themselves. And so the same thing goes with coaching. So the way you guys feel about your challengers is it could be the way that your coach feels about you in the business. Like we see this awesome potential in you, but in some cases we're thinking like, well, why aren't they making this happen? Right? Like, or are they making this happen, but could they do more than that? And it always comes back to the answer that we always answer with is it has to come down to belief. Right? And we don't know if that's belief in yourself or belief in the business or belief in this company or whatever it is. But there's oftentimes when you find yourself getting off track or hitting a plateau or feeling like you're in a funk, it comes down to belief. There's nothing else that it comes down to than that. So that's why I wanted Amy to talk about it. I also wanted, before we open it up to you guys for conversation and questions, I wanted to say that I was going to live stream today on the team page, and I thought, I'll just talk about it tonight on the team call. But I got invited to be part of this private mentoring group with Carl Deichler, which is sort of a big deal, and it's freaking me out, to be honest. Like at first I was like, I'm not freaked out, and then I was like, I'm kind of but he challenged us, like, just so you guys know, like this is also out of my comfort zone. And tonight, like he's posting like a daily challenge in this little group that he has. So yesterday we had to answer these questions. And honestly, the questions that he asked were very deep. Like he obviously had been giving this a lot of thought. And the types of questions that he asked were just spot on for even our topic tonight. The very first question that he wanted answered was, what is your self-limiting belief that's keeping you from your goal or keeping you from whatever? And so I found that interesting that here I am today sitting down to answer this question, and it was like perfect timing for us to be talking about this tonight. But anyways, his challenge for us today. So this is just for tonight. Like this wasn't like like this morning, he wants us to help one person a day for the entire month of May. So that's 31 people in the month of May. So he's pushing us to help one person a day with a challenge pack, which is totally out of my comfort zone. But we have this little calendar, and we have to put an X on the days that we help somebody. And so there's the accountability piece there. And then he's asking us all these questions, and I think he's trying to get a feel for what coaches in the field are really doing and the types of objections that we're coming up against. And so his challenge just for tonight, like he literally just posted right before I got on this call at like 8 o'clock, he posted that he wants us each to sell one more challenge pack today. So he wants us to sell one tonight, and he wants us to help 2 of our coaches do the exact same thing and sell one tonight. And I'm like, what? Like, I have a team call. Like, I have my baby's puking in the crib. Like, there's no way. Like, this isn't going to happen, right? But it all comes back to, like, do I really believe that I can do it? And so, honestly, I feel like when the CEO of the company says, I'm going to put you in this group, and I'm going to hold you accountable because I believe that there's more in you, it's amazing how much more comes out of me when someone else has that belief in me. And so I know that we talked tonight specifically about how you believe about yourself, the whole, the video with, how do you see your own beauty and that sort of thing. I love that, but I also want you guys to know that, like, you're not in this alone, and that this really does come down to you have a mentor, you have a team that believes that you can do more than you're currently doing. And I'm hoping that comes across. I hope that comes across in the fact that we have a resident life coach on our team, and that we put personal development as a core of who we are and what we believe in as a team. But I hope that you'll do a little bit of some thinking on this. I don't want you to just think of this as like a feel-good webinar or something that you're just gonna like be fired up about for 5 minutes. Like, I want you to really think about, okay, if I was to describe myself as, so very similar to the video where they're asked to describe their physical features, I want you to think about how you would describe yourself as a coach, right? And is that description, does it come across as confident? Does it come across as just hard, like you're in it, right? Does it come across as like committed, confident, 100% all in? Or is it sort of like this thing that you're dabbling with? Because I think that how you describe yourself and how you describe your commitment to the business is what other people see in you as well. And that's what they're looking to as well. So I'm being challenged in this exact same realm as well by the CEO. And I'm hoping that that I can challenge you guys too, to just really think about, like, what is it that you want with this business? What self-limiting beliefs do you have that is keeping you from achieving that? And how can you take the content that Amy provided tonight to really think about what's your reality, right? Because I know that right now you're thinking like, yeah, I have belief. Like, that's totally not me. Like, I'm confident enough. I'm confident enough to do this, right? But are you confident? There's a difference between confident enough for maybe like a low standard or confident enough to really rock this thing. So I feel like this is exactly what we needed to hear. So I'm thankful to you, Amy, for doing it. I'm hoping that we can do a sort of bigger event too on this topic, because I think coaches across the network, this is exactly what they need to be hearing. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. If you guys have any questions or comments or whatever, since this is being recorded, I'm going to switch my screen real fast. There we go. I like to record it on speaker view so that people watching the recording don't see all of us like making faces during that. So does anybody have anything that they want to chime in with, or any questions?
I'll chime in with one thing. I think I keep going back to, Jenny, it's something you said a while ago. And you talked about how when people ask you what you do, what your answer is. Because for a lot of us, our default is to go to what our full-time job is, so to speak. And that was totally me. And it's helpful now that both of my jobs have the title of coach. I'm an instructional coach by day and a Beachbody coach by early morning and night. And so it helps that it's all the same title, but I have noticed a difference in the way that I talk about what I do and my confidence when I kind of own that as this is what I do. And so I've made a point when people do ask me what I do to kind of say that and start that conversation. And I think just starting with that has made the difference. Before, when you said it, or are you just kind of dabbling in it? And I'm like, that's exactly what I used to do. What do you do? Oh, I'm an instructional coach, and yeah, health and fitness coach on the side. So it just, even flipping that has made that difference for me in my confidence, at least.
That's good.
I love that. I just listened to a Lewis Howes podcast. I don't know which one it was. I'm kind of obsessed with him. But he was interviewing a lady, and they were talking about how to phrase questions differently. And I had this idea that, like, if I could go back in time when I was working at a corporate job, because, you know, you'll meet people on the elevator, you know, people randomly will just be like, what do you do? Like, what do you do for a living? And it's such a, like, boring question. And I think this girl he was interviewing in the podcast was like, oh, I hate that question. And so anyway, so I had this idea that, like, if I was in that position again, like if I was working a full-time job and I was building my Beachbody business, like I was 5-6 years ago, I would ask a question back. So if someone said to me in an elevator, what do you do? I would ask a question back, and I would say, what do I do? What do I currently do from 9 to 5, or what do I dream about? And that's what I would ask back. Like, what do you want me to answer? Do you want me to answer, like, what I'm doing from 9 to 5, or do you want me to answer what I dream about when I'm really how I'm pursuing my passion? I think that sets the conversation up for a very confident conversation about what I do, right? And you're already kind of setting the tone versus saying, you know, even just saying I'm a Beachbody coach. So I thought of that the other day, and I was going to share that. Made me think of it, but I don't know. I think that's important. I think how your body language and what you're saying when someone asks you that question is important for how that whole conversation is going to go.
Right. Was that the Vanessa Edwards, The Science of People one?
It might be.
I was listening to that when I was running the other day, and yeah, I love the way she talked about.
Yeah,
she talked about when you meet people and you just ask how you are and what they do. Like, you're not saying that you don't care what they do and you're going to judge them by what they do, essentially. And yeah. I listened to the part of that again when I could actually write some things down, because she had some great tips on how to have those what kind of questions to ask people. And I loved her focus on what's going well in your life right now. Like, what are you excited about now? And just kind of setting the tone for what type of person you are. Even in a really, really toxic environment in my school right now, with, like, the union suing the district, and it's just miserable everywhere. And I really use that going into a lot of conversation. You know, if you ask people how they are, you're going to get a mouthful. But going in and asking somebody what they're excited about, or, you know, something positive about what's going on in their lives or your life, just kind of sets up that confidence too. Mm-hmm. That was a good one.
It completely changes the atmosphere, right? Because you're focusing in on something positive right away, helping them to go there. Because our attitude is very contagious.
Yeah, it's just so funny because I keep having these, and Amy knows this because Amy coaches me one-on-one too, so she gets to see me all the time, not just in masterminds. But one of my big frustrations that I have as a leader, which I never realized that I had, was I get frustrated that the time and energy that I devote and that I put into coaches to build the business, who say they want to build the business, it can be returned, but at some point this belief in themselves starts to fade. And I've seen this happen more often than not. And I'll give you an example. Like, I'll have coaches ask me, like, to this moment, like 5 minutes ago, this question could have been asked me. I could be on a phone call with one of my coaches, and one of my coaches will say, well, what are you going to wear on stage at Summit this year? And they'll ask me these questions about, like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome, and, you know, whatever. And it frustrates the heck out of me, because why do you care about what I'm going to wear on stage this year? Like, why are you, and it sometimes feels like, or I have this happen even at, like, public events, like Super Saturdays. Like, this girl stood in front of Chris and I at Super Saturday and, like, knew who we were, followed us on Facebook. Like, as Katie Kelly calls it, we're like Beachbody famous. Like, they knew who we were. And she stood there and talked to us like we were of this, like, different caliber of person than she was. And it drives me crazy because, as my mom always says, we all put our pants on the same way, and we all have to work equally as hard to achieve the same benchmarks. And I don't want anybody thinking about what I'm going to wear at Summit this year. I want people to start thinking about what they're going to wear at Summit, what you're going to want to do when you cross the stage at Summit. And I think it's too common, especially in a business like this. A business like this can really be similar to high school popularity. And people can see other people who have long blonde hair, who are just like drop dead gorgeous, who are getting all the accolades, who are super smart, and they automatically compare themselves and say, well, that's sort of over here, but I'm really just going to shoot for this down here because that's where I feel comfortable, and it drives me freaking nuts. But I was on a call with a different coach like 2 weeks ago, and the coach told me that, like, I asked if she was reading any leadership books, and she was like, well, I don't really see myself as a leader. And so we had to have this little like come to Jesus moment that, like, if you're in this business, like, sorry about you, but network marketing is a business of leadership. You have to be able to lead people to health and fitness, lead them on their journey. You have to be able to lead people when it comes to working the business, right? So I don't know what you thought this was, but leadership is going to be a huge piece of it. So, the thing is, like, when I said it that way, it was like, oh, right, okay, yeah, what should I read? But the belief wasn't there. The belief was Jenny's the leader. So Jenny's going to take care of that. And I'm not, I don't have to be the leader. I can just be the follower and have some level of success. And if this resonates at all, I could just be talking to myself, but if this resonates at all, I'm hoping that you're thinking, finally, okay, like, I'm going to put my pants on tomorrow morning the same way that Aaron Young does, the same way that Julie Boris does, the same way that Becky Brosette does, and I'm going to just do this thing. Like, I'm going to figure out what it is I want, I'm going to figure out what it is I'm going for, and I'm going to believe in myself enough to do it. Too often, people are like living vicariously through other coaches. Right. And I'm a victim of that too. I really, honest to God, want to speak on stage at Summit someday or speak somewhere. And so when there's another coach that's speaking on stage at Summit, I'm like, oh, it's killing me. Right. Like, it's killing me. I used to think about it in terms of like, well, why did that person get asked to do it? And, I would be super jealous and I would take that energy nowhere. And now it's like, I'm really dissecting what I need to do to get there. Like, instead of worrying about it, I'm just really going to dissect what I need to do to get there. So I'm hoping that this speaks to you, because I think there are people here that are just like, there are coaches on this team that think that this sort of like mediocre level of success is enough, or that I believe in myself enough to be okay at this, or I believe in myself enough to really, to kind of keep showing up and see if this works out. But I think it was in the John Maxwell book that we're reading right now, where he says, like, the fairy godmother is not going to come and give you, she is not going to come and give you what you're wanting. Like, you're going to have to work for it. And I think that's totally true. But if we don't have that foundational belief that we can, and that this thing is really something worth pursuing, then it's a huge waste of time. It's a huge waste of time.
I mean, you've probably seen that meme that says, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Right? I mean, belief is key, but it's not the only piece. Like Jenny said, it's like we have to work hard in order to achieve it. And that's why, that was one of the reasons why. I mean, yes, that video, I think what it conveyed to me in just a different way, other than you are more beautiful than you think, which I think is true. It is more seeing how that inner belief affected thoughts, right, and actions. We didn't see the ultimate result of, what careers or what people did they hang around. Because I think there's one thing about, you saying, I believe I can do it, but this is where you have to look at your actions, right? Because, again, this is just the reality check side of things. Because if I'm not realistic or honest with myself with where I'm at, I'm not going to change where I am. So, that Jenny believes in you hardcore. And that's part of, as coaches, as leaders, absolutely, not only believing in yourself and believing in those, but then it's, if there is some disconnect, this is where the reflection piece, just like Jenny said, you need to take some time to be really thinking into this. Like, I'm saying one thing, but things aren't happening. Now, granted, the business takes time to grow, right? We know that, but it's like, where do I need to take responsibility? Maybe in the sense that, yeah, some of these negative beliefs are true of me, and you need to deal with that core before the other things are going to change long term, right? We can change a behavior short term, but like Zig Ziglar said, right? It's impossible to consistently behave in a manner inconsistent with how we see ourselves. So you can behave differently for a short period of time, but long term, if that inner core belief isn't there. So, doing that hard work of addressing areas where there could be some scarcity thinking or where you're feeling insecure or powerless. Take a look at that, be honest with yourself. Have someone you trust speak into your life and say, okay, now that I know, what's the step? What's a step toward believing something different? And you'll see things change. I mean, you can't help but transform your thoughts, your actions, and then ultimately your results. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad you just said that, because that's exactly what I want to end on is, honestly, it really comes down to, for me, like, I can summarize everything that I feel about all of this in one little small paragraph, which is, if you're not getting the results you want in the business, or even in your personal life, but I don't really want to go there because I'm your business mentor, not your life coach. If you're not getting results in your business, it's most likely coming from, I don't want to say a lack of belief, but it's most likely it's rooted in something having to do with belief. If you believe in yourself and in the business enough, you will succeed. Bottom line. I've told people a million times, nobody argues with a passionate person, right? Nobody argues with somebody who is just all in, confident, and just totally owns it. And that's how I feel. Like, people are like, why, I'm sure people are thinking, like, how is Jenny Swisher so successful? Like, she wears sweatpants and never washes her hair. And my thought every single day is like, I don't know how I'm successful, but I know that I just don't ever stop. And I know that when I commit to something, I'm all in, right? Like, there's probably people who are faster than me. There's probably people who are smarter than me, but I'm not going to quit. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to show up every day. And I'm going to speak passionately, because people can't argue with passion. So if you feel like maybe it's when it comes to recruiting coaches, you feel like that's really like something that you're really struggling with. My guess is that it's rooted in the confidence level that's being conveyed and the passion that's being conveyed when you're going about recruiting those people. The language that you're using, your nonverbals, etc. I had a conversation last night with someone where we talked about how, if you're having a conversation with a potential coach and you're talking about the discount, you're probably going to get a coach who's not too excited about the business who comes onto your team, right? So if you're recruiting people and you're thinking about, if you're talking to them about, how awesome you think they'd be at this and how you want to help them pay it forward, and you're really almost like pouring that belief into them, they're going to come on board with a totally different expectation and mentality as a coach on your team. So anyways, it all comes back to it. I think it's a foundation of who we are as coaches. It's a foundation of what we're doing. You have to believe in what this business has to offer you in order to find success with it. So I'm super grateful to you, Amy, for taking some time out. I was kind of hoping maybe we'd have like an extra 10 minutes for you to sing to us or something, but maybe. But anyways, if you guys, Amy is a resident in our team page. So she's not a Body Electric coach, sadly, but she is in our team page. So if you guys want to tag her or ask her a question or reach out to her there, you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for being on here. Those of you who are live, those of you who are listening to the recording, thanks for listening to the recording. I'll have this up tomorrow morning as usual on the team page. So thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
All right. Yeah, my pleasure.
See you on the mastermind next week.
All right.
All right. See ya.